All right, everybody, we are ready to get started with the 2018 event trends by Social Tables. I'll be the quasi-host, Trevor Lynn, mainly here for introductions and color commentary, but Don Berger is going to be presenting the meat of the topic today.
What's up, everybody?
That's our CEO, Don Berger. So for those of you that don't know, and I'll let Don introduce himself a little bit more in a minute, but to give you some context around the event trends and what we're doing with these is event trends and kind of future predictions are something that Don's talked about a lot over the course of the last 6 or 7 years while we've been at Social Tables. He speaks at conferences all over the country. Think, conferences that you might have heard of, things like Cater Source or the Special Event or, PCMA Convening Leaders, MPI, World Education Conference. He recently just got back from ESPA where he delivered a similar talk. So these are predictions that are, they're vetted, they come from the industry, they come from a lot of our insights and perspective at Social Tables, but also through a lot of the conversations that we're having with our customers, learning from our customers and the constant conversations we have there. So we hope you can walk away today with some things that you'll be excited to share with your team for them that couldn't get on the call, or if you're running your own business, or if you're just looking for ideas and ways to stay fresh as you head into next year and hit your goals. That's what's going to come out of today, hopefully for you. So we'll make it as interactive as possible, and we'll get to some of those ground rules here in a second. But before we get into that, I want to let Don introduce himself. So Don, take it away.
Trevor, don't people aren't you supposed to introduce me?
Yeah, but I think it's more fun this way.
All right. Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are. I know there are people from all over the world tuning in. I think this is actually the biggest attendance we've had for any webinar we've done. We do one once a quarter. So, boy, the pressure is high, and I truly hope this is going to be valuable to you. I certainly promise to give you my all, and I know Trevor is doing the same. So, I think before I do anything, I'd like to just set the stage in telling the audience about myself, because that helps you understand why I am somewhat qualified to talk about the things I'm about to talk about. The first thing is I'm an event planner. I've been planning events for quite some time. I used to plan events for congressmen in the early 2000s. Then I ran an association and planned events in that capacity. I've also, like many of you, have participated in events. I've participated in a ton of events, whether it's a political protest, a music festival, or an industry conference. And it can be in an organizing capacity, a sponsoring capacity, or a attendee capacity. I'm a supplier. Obviously, I run Social Tables. I started Social Tables 7 years ago. We are a vendor to the hospitality industry, and we don't shy away from that. And we believe that vendors should have a special relationship with the buyers they serve, right, with their customers. And that relationship shouldn't just be an exchange of dollar for some sort of product or service. It should actually be also an exchange of knowledge and information, which is why we put this kind of thought leadership out there, so that we tell you what we're seeing, because we have the benefit of and we sit in the perch of serving 5,000 customers and tens of thousands of users. So we want to share whatever we learn with you, whether you're a customer or not. And that all ties back to one very simple idea, and that's at Social Tables, we believe in a world where every face-to-face achieves great things. And quite simply, that means that if you have an event and it's face-to-face and people take the time to actually get together in person, well, gosh, that time should be well spent and the event should be successful. And, it sounds kind of crazy, but we're not going to rest until we achieve this very, what seems to be a very simple vision, but actually is harder and harder to do as we reach it deeper into the digital age. So really quick about Social Tables, just a level set to make sure that you understand some of our company's background. Started the company in 2011. We're proudly made in DC. That means our office is in DC. In fact, for those Washingtonians, shout out to all the DC, Maryland, and Virginia folks on the line. Our office is right next to the White House on 13th and G, next to the Willard, next to the W, and some other iconic DC establishments. We have 100 employees, and we've raised about a little over $22 million in venture capital funding. Now, the reason I share this piece of information is not to show off, but in order to communicate to you that the industry you're in is backed by world-class investors who care about the future of this industry. Because as you will see in today's presentation, when you follow the money and see where money is being put or where money is being put, you can actually know what's ahead. Now we see a lot of companies getting back that are doing cryptocurrency. Well, this crypto thing might be a big deal. You just follow the money, and you'll know what's up ahead and where investors are thinking. And from as far as a servicing perspective is concerned, we serve nearly 5,000 customers, and they create about over 2 million events. And there have been 300 plus million participants in our software. And shout out to the person who shouted out Bitcoin. You can't have a trends presentation in 2018 without talking about Bitcoin. All right, well, that's a little about social tables in a nutshell. I'm gonna let oh, sorry about that. Just press the funny button. I'm gonna let Trevor quickly cover. So, Trevor, let me actually turn. You're probably not expecting this, but 2018 is a new year for social tables in that we're repositioning, reframing our offering, going from all the different solutions that people may know that we have into something pretty concrete. Can you talk about that a little bit? How that change is happening?
Sure. Yeah. So social tables, we're a software as a service company, and what that means or how that benefits our customers is that we're constantly updating our software, we're constantly adding new features, and we shipped a lot of features in 2017. So we kind of got to the end of the year, 2017, looked at all the work that we had done, all the new features and capabilities that we've added to the platform, and kind of realized that through all those new features being added, we've kind of moved past where we started the year and kind of where we've been for the past few years, and moved on to something bigger, a bigger platform, more features, different functionality. So kind of the way that we're thinking about social tables heading into 2018 is we kind of have two sides of the equation. One is a group marketing and sales side of the equation, which is very much property oriented, so venues and hotels and universities, helpful to manage RFPs. We have very interactive, engaging collateral. We have ways for them to send proposals. So that's all very much revenue generating on the property side. And then what a lot of people know us for is around kind of more of like a group management or kind of an event services side of things. So all of the collaboration tools that social tables for, the diagramming, seating, guest list management, all those things that you want to do to execute an event. So from a high level, this is kind of how social tables breaks out and how we're thinking about it now that we've added so much new functionality over the past 12 months, and looking at 2018 and how can we communicate that a little bit better.
So for the planners on the line, our software continues to be available to you at no cost. And you can come in and we just released this in August, so you can use our diagramming tool for free. And that's part of the group management Trevor just talked about. Check-in as well as seating will be free soon as well. And then if you go to search.socialtables.com, you can find any one of our almost 7,000 properties listed in there. Check out their floor plans, their content, and start planning events in those venues, which is really awesome. So search.socialtables.com is how you get there.
Awesome. So for those of you that are new to social tables and just joined because of the webinar, that's a little bit about us. And for those of you that already know about us and customers, we really appreciate your business and enjoy working with you. So that is it for social tables in terms of what we're going to talk about today. The rest of the day is focused on trends. So if you have your notes ready and you're ready to tune in and kind of learn and think about, what is the future of your job, what is the future of your role, our industry, all those good things. And so that's what we're going to do. So before we get rolling, a few things to know. So we're using GoToWebinar. And if you've never used it before, it has this really amazing feature where you can chat into us. So as we're talking about trends, if you agree, let us know. If you used the technology in the past, let us know. If you're nervous about it, if you're excited for it, if you think it's really cool but you don't know how you might use it, chat in and we'll try to address those as much as possible. It's a really big group. We can't obviously have a one-on-one conversation with everybody, but we'll pull some questions out. We'll answer those. We'll type back directly to you. So, keep that in mind. We want to make it engaging and make it as useful as possible. Second piece is we will be sending out this recording. So you'll get a recording, and then also as a bonus, you'll get a copy of our ebook, which takes these trends, gets more granular, puts a lot more language behind them, and gives you some ideas. And if you do want to download that ebook right away, it's right there on the right side. So socialtables.com/2018. If you go there, you'll be able to download the ebook and see it in greater detail. Today we'll cover from a high level. An ebook is not the same as slides, so we made this presentation more engaging. We're not going to read an ebook to you today. We're going to make it more fun than that. So if you want to get access to it, you have it. But more importantly, chat in if you have ideas or agree or disagree. Let us know. We want to hear it and we want to open up the conversation. So there we go. So we have our first person that chatted in, Melanie. She said she's a student that just discovered her passion and she really appreciates this. Thank you for joining, Melanie. That's amazing to hear. Hopefully, once you graduate, you'll land at a great company. So thanks for chatting in. All right, here we go. Don, take it away.
Okay, so here's how it's going to work. We're going to share with you a trend, and that trend is going to be data backed. And then we're going to walk you through what that might mean for the industry. So the first kind of trend that's been going on for the last couple of years is that hotels are more cognizant than ever of their cost structure. Well, what does that mean? That means that hotels are very much understanding their balance sheets and looking at a much greater level of detail at where spending is going. That's because who owns hotels has changed. It used to be where owning a hotel was a luxury for a family. So you might have a fast food chain, you might have a small business, and then you might have a hotel. Well, that's really no longer the case for the most part. Hotels are owned by asset managers who manage wide portfolios that have different classes of assets in there. And as a result of the fact that hotels are more cognizant of their cost structure, that's going to have an impact on meeting planners, who in this case are actually consumers of the goods that hotels are creating. So what does that mean for our industry? Well, owners will demand even higher profit margins because owners are more sophisticated, because owners are looking at line by line where the spending is taking place. They're going to want to see hotel owners cut costs, and that might have an impact downstream. It also might mean that in an effort to cut costs, hotel owners and hotel chains will make a push for booking more group business online. As we all know, if you go into one of the online travel agencies like Expedia, you can only book 10 rooms at a time. Well, if we increase that, then we won't need as many salespeople, and we'll increase our margins. There's also a lot of third parties in the industry that take commission. That might have an impact as well, as we'll see in a second. Most group business will be booked direct thanks to matching algorithms. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Hilton's ad campaign, Stop Clicking Around, but that ad campaign was basically, it was a free advertising for all the industry, but it urged consumers to stop going to third parties and go directly to the Hilton.com, to Hilton's website in order to book their hotel. And the reason for that is because they didn't want to pay 10% commission to the third parties. So they figured they might as well take the money that they're paying in commission, spend it on a marketing campaign, and drive their consumers to book direct with Hilton. And finally, supplier pricing power will be even stronger due to continued consolidation. As we've seen over the past few years, whether it's a private equity firm buying out a property management group, whether it's one chain buying another, like Accor buying Fairmont, Marriott buying Starwood, and so on, because there'll be more consolidation within the suppliers of the industry, they'll be able to have more price control. We've seen that happen with airlines. Just about 10 years ago, there were about a dozen major carriers in the United States. Today, there are only 3. But the biggest change that I just alluded to is the fact that the industry's business model will change. What will it become? We're really not sure. But our business model in the industry is quite antiquated. And, Deborah Sexton of PCMA, who just resigned as CEO after being there for 12 years, in her exit interview said that she wishes this industry moved faster. And because if the industry moved faster, we'd be able to embrace all the wonderful things that are happening in other industries and apply them to our industry. And I couldn't agree more. But whenever you see change in an industry, it always starts with a business model. And our business model will change. It might mean less commission. It might mean inverted marketplaces. Who knows? But it will change. It'll have an impact on how we do business. Next up, new ways to travel are changing our behavior. So as we all know, everybody and their mother, it seems, in Detroit and in Silicon Valley are working on autonomous vehicles that can drive themselves. Uber is working on autonomous freight trucks that could, deliver cargo from point A to point B. There are soon going to be these flying hovercrafts by 2020 that Uber is releasing that will be able to take people autonomously in a helicopter-type vehicle. All those things means that autonomous vehicles will unlock new destinations. Because if I am going to Pittsburgh from Washington, D.C., where I live, and I can just press the button instead of have to drive, that destination is actually much more appealing to me. I can just put my car on autopilot, do some work on the way to the conference, and I no longer have to spend a day for travel where I'm discombobulated or I'm not productive. Speaking of these kinds of services in the sharing economy, home sharing will add inventory everywhere. If right now, most cities, well, at least it used to be that most cities measured their hotel inventory by the number of sleeping rooms the hotels offered in the city. But now with home sharing, that's increased the amount of available sleeping rooms that exist in cities. Well, if there's more room in sleeping room inventory, that means that the capacity that the city can have increases. So you go from having 20,000 rooms in a city to having 30,000 rooms in a city with all the Airbnb and other services that exist that open it up. And that means that a citywide that once couldn't be housed in a certain city can now fit in that city. And it can mean that we can now appeal to even more, to address even more generational issues by attracting different folks to our events. So if a car can get me somewhere farther away, and if a home is now available for sleeping that it wasn't in the past, that means that destinations that weren't once available are now available. We also know that events can happen anywhere. We have the capability to tent any space, to heat any space, to cool any space, to stand up a field kitchen anywhere, and that means that events can happen anywhere. I know there was a wedding that took place in Italy a couple of years ago, and it was so remote that they had to use a helicopter to deliver the event equipment. Events can happen anywhere, and we see that in our software all the time. We have customers who are parks, who are cities, that buy our software in order to plan events in city streets or on rooftops or parking lots. And that's because the ballroom is somewhat outdated for certain events. And if that means that there are more physical destinations, right? So second-tier cities have been unlocked because you can now get there faster. And there are more venues because everything is a venue. There will be also virtual destinations. So instead of going to the Fillmore in downtown Silver Spring, Maryland, I can go to some virtual destination, like a virtual venue, if you will. So there might be CVBs or convention and visitor bureaus that represent virtual destinations, or sales reps that represent virtual venues. Maybe a virtual destination rep that represents an entire planet in a virtual setting. But all this means one thing, is that remote destinations, whether online or in the real world, will compete with traditional ones. Because it'll be easier to get there, easier to find a place to rest your head, and there'll be more options. Next, a new computing platform is emerging. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the different computing platforms that have been introduced over the last 30 to 40 years, generally computing platforms last about 10 years before they are outdated. Take, for instance, the desktop. Came out in the early 80s, then the web browser came in the early 90s, the smartphone came out in 2007 with the iPhone. These were all new computing platforms, and they all got better, and then they kind of, they got the market penetration that essentially you can't go any further when you're, a 97, 98% penetrated, as we'll see in a second with cell phone. You can't really go any further. Something else is going to come. What will that thing be? Who knows? Take, for instance, virtual reality. That might be the new thing. That might be the new platform. If you follow my red pointer here, you can see, and I said earlier, follow the money to know where things are going in technology. In 2016, $1.5 billion was invested into VR. 17 saw a dip, but you can see there's an increase over time in how much money is put in virtual reality. Will that be the new computing platform? Maybe. But if you look at smartphone penetration, disregard the operating system. Just look at penetration. Just look at the year-over-year growth. in the global smartphones that have been shipped month over month. The year-over-year growth is right here in the red line. That's decreasing. So there aren't many new smartphones being shipped because most of the world has a smartphone. So that's kind of, played out. So what does that mean? Well, if virtual reality is the new computing platform, that might mean that site visits won't be as common. A Georgetown-backed study, a Georgetown study that Social Tables conducted in collaboration with Georgetown University told us that the average event planner does about 2.5 site visits per event. Well, what if they can use a device to visit the site virtually? Would that number drop to 2, 1.5, maybe less than 1, because we could visit event spaces virtually? We're certainly not there. Social Tables has had virtual reality for years in our 3D platform, but that was kind of clunky, and I was really caught out. Our customers aren't really asking for it, so that might not be the thing, but it might be. Telepresence will be hyper-realistic. This idea that I can have a conference, and imagine if I was right now at some sort of virtual venue where all of you, my audience, sat there, and it was so real that you felt that you were actually there. So telepresence, which is this idea of a 360-degree conference call, will be hyper-realistic. The way we experience events will change. Right now, we experience events by looking at a speaker while looking at our phone, listening to a keynote while taking notes on our laptop, looking at a speaker while checking Facebook on our tablet. That second screen experience that we see all the time because we're using multiple digital devices. But what if there's a new computing platform, whether it's glasses or a bracelet or some, wearable, some other wearable, or who knows what? That will change the way we experience events. So instead of looking at our screens right now, we will start looking at our, maybe our glasses to see some augmented reality. And all that brings me to one basic premise, which is virtual and real events will become one and the same. Right here, you're seeing Janelle Monáe and MIA doing a performance of that's a hybrid, real and virtual. So this kind of virtual and real event will become one as we continue into the future and technology's computing platform enters a new era. Next, we're entering a new industrial revolution centered around artificial intelligence. In his book, Sapiens, Yuval Harari talks about this idea that the modern human came around about 250,000 years ago. Then there was a cognitive revolution where our brains grew and we became smarter. There was the agricultural revolution where we started realizing how we can mass produce food. There was a scientific revolution, which included the industrial age, the automobile, the information age. And now we're entering the augmentation revolution, which is where technology and biology are merging into one thing. And you can see that in your day-to-day and how you currently interact with all your digital devices. But the reality is artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. In fact, it was invented in the mid-50s. It was only in the 90s that we invented machine learning, where machines could start analyzing data and find patterns. And then about a decade ago, we discovered deep learning, where we actually automatically find patterns within that data, and machines are almost programming themselves. So AI has been around for a long time. It's only now that we have the computing power to actually be able to use it. And again, follow the money, see where it's going, and you can see investments in AI have increased since over the last few years, especially in 2016. And there's kind of a high period and a low period, So investments in artificial intelligence is certainly a thing. So what does this all mean for, as far as predictions are concerned, for the industry we're in? Well, administrative event planning work will be automated. Much like a lot of the work that pilots have done, besides landing and takeoff, which can also be automated, by the way, administrative planning work will be automated. So imagine for a second, scheduling will happen automatically without even doing anything. Imagine check-in will be happen automatically. Or something like seating. At Social Tables, when I talk to my team and I say, hey, how much are you guys thinking about what's next? I position the question as saying, how do we eliminate the need for floor plans? How do we eliminate the need for any sort of sales collateral for a hotel? How can we put our own software out of a job? Because that's the kind of automation that's happening. Attendee preferences will follow them around. If I go to an event and I go to another event, that fingerprint, right, that digital wallet will follow me from place to place. And the event planners that plan events for me will know what I like and what I don't like. Events will have a higher return on investment because we will rely less on serendipity. So, you know, it used to be where you used to walk around events and really hope to run into somebody that's valuable to you, that you can do business with, that you can network with. But the reality is that if we can rely on machines or software to tell us what to do as opposed to serendipity, there's a much higher likelihood of being successful. You know, I think about going to the doctor, and I ask people the question, I say, would you rather go to visit a doctor who's been out of school for about 40 years and hasn't read a medical journal in a few years, or would you rather go to Google and type in your symptoms and it'll tell you exactly what is going on with you? Or rather run a genetics test to see what you might have. That's the kind of reliance we'll have on technology in the future of events. And while I don't know the exact way that AI will impact events, what I do know is that it will have a major impact somehow. And it just leave it to the imagination to see and think about ways that AI will impact events. It really, I don't even know where to stop thinking about those kinds of things. Next, predictable physical work is being replaced by machines. If you look at I like looking at the chart from the bottom up. If you look at the chart at the bottom, you can see that 18% of the time spent in all U.S. occupations is predictable physical work. So in other words, 20% of the time that workers in the United States work, they're doing something predictable. Flipping a hamburger, folding a shirt at a retail location, stocking a shelf at the grocery store, you know, typing another expense report. And the reality is that 75% of that 18% could be automated today with the advances we have in technology. You can replace, you can do 80% of that work with machines. And again, if you look at investments in robotics, you can see that investments in robotics have been growing year over year, and they intend on growing into the future. So there will be automation for machines, and it'll have an impact on events. For example, the best photographers will know how to fly. Instead of photographers walking around a venue or an event, they might sit in the corner and fly a drone to take the best pictures possible. Robots will replace some security personnel. Right now, there are robots that a company can purchase, and they can walk around the office and tell you where there's a leak, where there's a break-in, where the lights are on, make sure everybody in the office past working hours have been credentialed properly, and so on. That could happen at events too, especially with the heightened security we have around events. Robots will be used to set up and tear down events. In other words, you don't need humans to actually set up a banquet hall. You can use robots to do that. Or building booths for that matter. Interacting with robots will be socially acceptable. We'll be walking around events and we might talk to robots. Right now you would laugh at somebody, but in 10 years you might be like, oh, hey, there's another robot. Don's talking to a robot again, and it won't be that weird. And the price of robots will decrease below labor costs, because right now, even though you can do a lot of the stuff, like we talked about, 80% of 20% of the U.S. occupations can be automated, but the problem is it's very costly. Well, robots, their costs will decrease, and that will dip below labor costs, which, by the way, is going up because of whether it's workers' comp or health insurance and whatnot, minimum wage increases. But robots won't be unionized, and people will probably choose them instead of humans. And then finally, focusing on the customer will be more important than ever because we'll spend so much time in front of machines, because we'll spend so much time doing other things, because a lot of the stuff that we have done in the past has been automated. So automation will be all around us, and it'll be normal to see it. Next, a new generation is entering our industry, bringing its own set of values. You've heard millennials, you've heard Gen Z. I'm not going to bore you about those kinds of generations and what their qualities are. But what I can tell you is that younger people value transparency, and they want folks to take a stand. They want event organizers to take a stand on why they're boycotting a certain destination. They want CEOs to tell them how companies are performing financially. They want buyers and suppliers to have conversations where they reveal information as opposed to hold it back. So transparency will be one of our core values as an industry. Trust will be measured digitally. Right now, I can go and see the review of a website of a restaurant on a website. I can go and get ratings on a hotel room, but I can't get it on an event. I can't get it on a services team, a convention services team. I can't get it on the food and beverage of group at a hotel banquet hall, or banquet room, I should say. And we'll be more comfortable sharing information with our industry partners. You know, I always think about the current process of booking events, and it's like, hey, I'm thinking about having an event. Okay, when? Can't tell you. Who's your client? Can't tell you. What's your budget? Can't tell you. And then the planner says, do you have availability? Can't tell you. Do you have sleeping rooms? What's the rate? Can't tell you. It's so much holding back, where we'll be more comfortable sharing information with our industry partners because it's in the best interest of every single person involved. And I think about, you know, matching and matching planners and properties. If I want to go have a meal, an app can tell me where's the best place based on my preferences. If I want to find love, an app can tell me who I should match with. If I want to have an event, why can't an app tell me where I should go? What the best potential property is for me to have that event? I don't know. It's because part of it is because of the culture of our industry not being conducive to this kind of disruption. And hotel sales professionals will be measured by the success of their meetings. Imagine for a second if sales reps are measured by customer satisfaction as opposed to the amount of money they bring in. So there will be a culture shift in our industry, and it will be seismic. Almost there, folks. We're almost done. Just a couple more, I think. Next up, the DNA of events is changing as face-to-face becomes more, what's that word? Coveted. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at this graph, at this bar chart, over time, we've been spending more and more time with digital media. In 2016, it was 5.6 hours that the average adult spent with digital media. If we're spending more time with digital media, that means we're spending less time face-to-face. So the DNA of events will change because that face-to-face time will become more coveted. So what does that mean? Well, there will probably be some consolidation in meetings and events. Just like we have seen consolidation within suppliers, within vendors, there'll be consolidation within meetings and events. The association for X and Y, where there's very little difference between the two associations, won't last because their business model is not working, and they'll have to find a way to merge. And we'll probably see some small businesses buying other small businesses. Allied PRA and what else has happened in the DMC world, destination management company world, is very interesting, where there's a franchising model or consolidation model. Large meetings will warehouse smaller ones. So because we'll have less, because meetings will get consolidated, there'll be smaller meetings. And sorry for having, I see some people had trouble, technical difficulties. I'm glad they were resolved. Excuse me. Large meetings will warehouse smaller ones. So because there'll be a large meeting that's now consolidated, you will have smaller meetings. They're called MIMs, meetings in a meeting, or co-located. You may be familiar with that term. Influencer marketing will play an important role in driving attendance because traditional marketing routes like lists or advertising doesn't play well to the newer generation I spoke about. And influencer marketing, the people look up to in the industry, will play an important role in driving attendance. And these influencers will create their own events. So right now what's happening is associations find themselves competing with corporations, right? You don't go to the National Association of Sales Reps annual meeting. You go to Salesforce's annual meeting because that's the best place to be. But then maybe Salesforce will start competing with their own influencers, their top Salesforce users who will have their own conferences. And festivalized events, you may know them as experiences, will be the norm. I prefer the term festivalized events to experiences because experiences suggest to the user what they should be experiencing. A festivalized event is something that I, as a planner, can provide my user or my attendee. So they'll be the norm because it will be a choose-your-own adventure where everything is customized. So what does that mean? Well, that means that attention will be a planner's most coveted commodity. And that's because there'll be less time face-to-face and more time with digital media. And I see a note here from a young woman on the webinar. She says, in my event venue, we are measured by customer satisfaction, event attendees, and exhibitor satisfaction. Some receive commission based on survey results, not the size of the sale. That's awesome. That's very forward-looking. Thank you for sharing that feedback. And I think this is the last one, and it's a hopeful message, one that I'm super excited about, and that's the meeting planning profession is entering prime time. And that's because the value of meetings and events will be universally understood. No longer will it be a very kind of fuzzy line between an event and its ROI, because we can now measure ROI. We can have campaign influences, campaigns in Salesforce. We can have all kinds of tools to measure, hardware tools to measure the success of an event. The meeting planning profession will be more respected as a result because the value of meetings will be universally understood. Meeting planners will interact with executives on a regular basis. Some organizations have meeting planners directly report to executive teams, sometimes to the CEO. And that's because meetings and events help organizations achieve their objectives in the most fundamental way, whether it's achieving sales numbers or getting alignment across the team or speaking to customers and meeting with them. And that brings me to the final point, which is the meetings industry will be taken more seriously. And that's why I'm so happy to see so many of you on this webinar wanting to learn, wanting to expand your horizon. It's so important to stay ahead. And I really commend you for being so invested in your own future and your careers. And I'm going to let I'll let Trevor introduce this next slide.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the past, there's plenty of webinars and ebooks and ideas and topics on what's going on in the industry, what are the things that are catching on, what are the things to look out for. We thought it might be fun and interesting, maybe a little bit thought-provocative to talk through what are some things that aren't doing well, what are some things that aren't catching on quite yet in the industry, and talk a little bit about those. So maybe these are some things where people are falling short, the technology's not there, it's really just not taking off, or it's kind of falling short, maybe not living up to expectations. So let's dive into it. We have 3 of those, so we'll talk through each of those. So the first one is virtual reality. So one of the things that we're seeing from events and event organizers is that virtual reality is very cost prohibitive. It's difficult to execute because you have to put some sort of headset on. It's strange. There's a whole entire device, so there's equipment. And then the key thing, which is the last point, which is kind of the upward trend that is doing well, is the move to augmented reality. So, augmented reality is probably something you've seen on commercials on TV where someone holds up an iPhone. Pokemon Go is a great example. People have even worked that into their events to make it more engaging. But augmented reality did have a great year in 2017 where you can start to, you could have, Pokemon around a trade show booth. You can have, instead of a scavenger hunt with a little pamphlet that people run around and do, you could set up augmented reality stations where they need to go see the icon up close or take a picture with the icon, things like that. So virtual reality is going down, augmented reality going up. What do you think, Don?
Well, I think that's super important because this is a really important example, Trevor, of how a platform controls the future of technology. There was no platform to serve virtual reality. Google created Google Cardboard where you take your Android phone and stick it inside a box and put it in front of your face. That's not realistic. But what Apple did is they said, okay, augmented reality is a thing. We're going to create an SDK, a software developers kit, to allow developers to program AR very easily into their applications. And then we're going to use the iPhone, and for that to become the augmented reality platform. So they're using software to push a new platform, and the platform is the iPhone in this instance.
Yeah. So augmented reality is something that is widely adopted. There's plenty of games, there's developers, there's all sorts of things that you can do with augmented reality, and they have an entire kit for people that are building it. So if you're trying to think of what's a fun way to engage my audience, you could look at a small custom augmented reality app that there's plenty of web development companies that would help you do that to make it. It could be whether you're doing event marketing and you need to bring people to your booth or have something fun for them to do in your booth, or if you're planning the entire event and you just want people to be able to have a really interesting atmosphere. A really lightweight example of this is like Snapchat filters. So Snapchat filters, people are starting to customize those for events. So when people bring up Snapchat, there's things in the background, there's movement, there's activity, there's animations. That's a form of augmented reality that's really simple and catching on in a really big way that you can do from an event standpoint that's really easy, or you could go all the way to the higher end and build a custom app.
And so at Social Tables, we actually experimented with augmented reality. We had a prototype, and if you go to Cater Source, check out our booth, we'll be showing it.
All right, trend number 2, speaking of Cater Source, speaking of food, playing with your food. So food decor and things just getting out of hand to the point where the food's almost unedible. People are trying to be so creative with the food and make it so much a visual, kind of appealing, first of a kind experience that we're seeing caterers take on kind of wild projects that almost make it. It's almost not food. It's more of like an art or an activity that people are just kind of, not sure what to do with it. It actually doesn't create a great eating experience. It might be lots of fun. It's kind of a playful thing to do, but it's kind of getting to the point where it's way too outrageous, way too elaborate, and probably hitting a point where we want to make sure that we're staying in the realm of food. Plus all the trends on natural and whole and not putting lots and lots of additives into your body is also working against this trend.
I'm gonna get a little personal. So about these meal delivery kits, Trevor, like the Blue Apron or whatever. So I signed up for 3 of them because I wanted to see which one I'm gonna. So I signed up for Blue Apron, Fresh Direct. No.
I don't know them.
HelloFresh, and Sunbasket.
Okay.
Now I canceled Blue Apron and HelloFresh because they didn't have the health options that I wanted.
Right.
So that's a silly little example of how that can make a big difference.
It matters to people. People want food that looks like food. People want a food that's good for them and healthy for them. So the more additives and things that you can do to get the food to turn upside down and do a backflip before someone eats it, I think people are a little bit wary of it. So another one going down. So third, again, we like to be a little provocative and thought-provoking. So the last one we have up here is event apps. So one of the things that we're seeing and hearing overall from the industry is around event apps and kind of how they're difficult to get engagement, they're difficult to get people to put on their phone, and they're difficult to get people to interact and message and talk. And one of the hard things is that once you get that audience, they usually delete it right off their phone, and it's only useful throughout the event, and it's not really scratching the itch that people have from an event standpoint to know where to go and when to go and who's speaking and where can I meet people and where's the next room. It was helpful. It's like a good start, but it seems like it's one of those things where people still want more. They're still picking up the paper pamphlet. They're still looking around for signage, and there's got to be a better way to do it. So in terms of moving past event apps, Don, and getting into something else being more creative, how do you see that playing out?
I think that I think this relates to the trend I talked about regarding the next computing platform being something else. If the next computing platform is something else, like glasses or a bracelet or whatever, we don't know what that is yet, then event apps will have to reinvent themselves, because we might not even, think about it, right? Like the phone and all the apps you have, it's actually just like it used to be, right? In the sense that you're downloading software and you're installing it. It's not updated in real time. Whereas in the web, whenever you access a website, like software like Social Tables, it's updated automatically. So the phone, even though it's super innovative and awesome and all that good stuff, and it's the most important device we all have, it's using an antiquated, well, that's because of data limitations, but it's using an antiquated and network limitations, using an antiquated system.
Yeah, and this might be one of the areas, I think, touching on artificial intelligence. This might be one of the areas or one of the ways that events actually see a lot of progress with something like event apps. If if event apps can get smart enough, there's enough artificial intelligence where everyone feels like they have a personal assistant at the event that they can say, hey, you know, where's the next topic on X, and they can get served up 2 sessions, and this one's 5 minutes away, and this one's 10 minutes away by walking. That could help bring a, you know, fresh life back into it.
And if your preferences are following you, then that can make it, they can even recommend it automatically.
Exactly. Yeah. So this could be a great area where some of the things that are starting to catch on can kind of go into what we already have. It might help them make the leap from kind of a downward trend back onto an upward trend. So
totally. And there are a lot of smart people still doing event apps, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So hopefully that was fun for everybody. The downward trend section is probably not something everyone gets to
I like
see.
that we did that.
So and yeah, hopefully nobody's feelings are hurt, or you have all 3 of these things going on in your next event. Your event, it won't go poorly, it will go well. But this is just kind of what we're seeing from a high level. So, all right, so that brings us to the end of our presentation today. So hopefully everyone enjoyed it. You had a lot to walk away with.
That was fun.
And yeah, hopefully you had some fun. I know Don and I had a lot of fun. And you know, 2 things that you can do if you want to learn a little bit more. One is you can go to socialtables.com/2018, and that'll take you to our ebook. You can download that ebook, and it'll be a more robust, very detailed, kind of in writing way to take a look at these trends, maybe apply them, sit on them, and think for a little bit longer. If you're someone like me, I can't just, you know, watch a webinar and have all my ideas and walk away. I need to think about it, maybe read it a little bit. So socialtables.com/2018 will take you right there. And then if you do want to learn more about social tables in general, you can also visit socialtables.com/signup. You can sign up for free. You can take a look at the different products and services that we have to offer, and you know, a lot of the things that we're doing from a technology landscape that Don talked about, and how we're trying to push the envelope as well. So you can take a look there and see both. So again, download the ebook, take a look at social tables from a high level, and people are chatting in saying thank you, we appreciate it, thank you, Natalia and Melanie. Melanie said after this webinar she knows even more. This is her passion, so thank you so much. Diana wants someone to create a Tinder style app for attendees to express what they're looking for and have a successful networking experience. That's an awesome idea. So if there's innovators on this call right now and looking for their next app, Diana has one for you. And Mary said thank you for an interesting webinar. So thank you to everyone that chatted in. Oh, we got more. So lots of thank yous. You guys are so gracious. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is great.
What's up, Pittsburgh?
So yeah, so we had a lot of fun, and that's it for today. So we will send a recording to you. It'll all be in an email. You can share it with your team.
I don't want to go. It's like we're getting shower compliments, and it feels really good. I don't want to go. Can we just keep hanging out?
I think we have to go. I think there's a social table to run out here. So anyways, but yes.
Well, if you want to reach out to us,
if you do, yeah.
Trevor@socialtables.com. By the way, in case you're wondering, my name is spelled Dan, pronounced Don. It's an Israeli name. So, but Don or Dan at socialtables.com will go to me. At Don Berger on Twitter, at Trevor H. Lynn on Twitter.
Yeah, message us, email us, let us know what you think.
Let's hang out. If you're in D.C., give us a shout. Yeah, we're just going to keep hanging out here. Georgetown shout out, thank you.
This is the shout out. We don't even have credits rolling at the end, and it's just a shout out section. Awesome. Okay, everybody. It's been a great day. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kicking off the new year, it's not easy to get time.
Totally.
So hopefully we made it worth your while. So tune in next time. We'll have more webinars. Be on the lookout for those. And
we should do this more.
We should do it more often. We're going to do it more often. So.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.